Hey, and happy Monday. I hope you're doing well. I want to start today with a small little question, a small little test, and I want you to be honest and just write down what you think is the answer. And the question is, how many hours do you think you spend on your phone on a weekly basis? Like scrolling, streaming, watching stuff, social media. Write down whatever that number is. And now I want you to write down another number. How many hours do you spend a week for training and moving? Intentionally, doing something for your health. And I would like to, just have those numbers there. And we're going to look into more numbers later in this episode. And this is not to make you feel guilty or anything, but it's just to create awareness. And we know if we have awareness, then we can also make better decisions and change. And but before we start, I want to welcome you to this episode of Never Start Over Again. It's Monday. These episodes always comes out on Mondays, and that is the new tradition. My name is Rickard, and I started this on Mondays because I was looking for a podcast I could go into every Monday that kind of set the tone for the week. I had something to maybe focus on, something to make my brain work and move forward for this week. And today's session or episode is like a coaching session. This is something I do with entrepreneurs every week, and I thought it would be helpful for you too. And by the end of this episode, you will have a clearer idea of how your week is going to look like, and you're also going to see what agency you have. So I hope it's going to be useful. Again, many entrepreneurs really benefit from this, so I think you will do this too. I think I've talked about Benjamin Franklin in this episode or in this podcast before. And if you don't know him, then Google him. But he was a very well-respected, founding father, diplomat, inventor, writer, publisher, scientist, and he did more things in a lifetime than most people and institutions cannot manage to do in almost a century. And when historians have looked back on what he did to be so productive and so on, it was actually pretty simple. And it comes down to two questions that he had. And the first question he asked himself was, what good shall I do today? And then in the evening before he went to bed, he asked himself, what good have I done today? And then he accounted a bit for his hours. He wasn't obsessive, but he was, looking into what actually happened. And then he could also see what was the difference between what he intended to do and what did happen. And this kind of just daily review helped him move forward. And I think that is two simple questions that most people can do. Some people might avoid taking them, which I can understand. But if you are brave enough to just ask those questions, I think you will be actually having more things happening for you that you also want to happen. So he Franklin was not like a master in this discipline or something like that, but he understood that if he didn't know where his time went, he would never be able to understand how to change anything. So he took a step back to review, and when you review, you sometimes you think that is taking time, or you should be doing other work. Then if you have the time to do the review, you should just work instead. But this comes down to a bit of that principle of sharpening the saw. If you're familiar with that analogy, is that if you never take time to really sharpen your saw as somebody who's like cutting down trees, then the analogy is like you have two guys sawing trees. One guy, he's taking a break and he's, sharpening the saw, and the other guy who's he's still like trying to get the tree down, and the guy says, "Hey, take a break and sharpen your saw," and he says, "I don't have time to sharpen my saw. I have to work." But having these reviews and sharpening the saw is pretty important to take care of. But yeah, 250 years later, I think people are still amazed by what he did, and it's pretty interesting if you start to look into how we, the modern person now, how we spend our time. And so I did a bit of a review in numbers of where people put their time in a week, and it was pretty revealing, not shocking, but pretty revealing. Everyone has the same amount of hours in a week. It's 168 hours. It doesn't matter if you're a teen, if you're a billionaire, if you are unemployed, if you have kids, or you're retired. Doesn't matter if you're a business owner, if you're a lawyer or anything. Everyone has the same amount of hours, but everyone allocates their hours a bit differently. But obviously we can learn a lot by looking into the averages that people have. And obviously one of the biggest buckets of our time in a week goes for sleep. No big surprise for that. 8 hours is actually the average that people spend, and that is actually more than I thought, but that is the average. So it seems like people are actually sleeping enough hours. I don't know how the quality has been measured in that, but I would maybe say the quality's worse. On average, a adult person also spends 42 hours of work doing work or work-related stuff. We spend 4 to 5 hours a week on commuting. That is in Germany, about 26 minutes one way, so 52 minutes a day. And that is a lot of time that goes away. And I'm going to go back to how I've been using commuting in the past 10 years at least. 14 hours in a week goes to meals, hygiene, household tasks. And here's the big time suck that everyone knows about, but very few do anything about it. And that's that we spend 18 hours plus on screens and social media and for streaming and so on. So social media alone is about 2 hours and 21 minutes. I think most people that are having higher end type of technology spend more time. TV and streaming, 2.5 hours a week, so or a day. And now with football World Cup going on, I think that is significantly more. But yeah, it's a lot of hours. We spend 4 hours a week for real social connection, and that is a big drop. It has dropped about 40% in one decade, and I think this is one of the most alarming things when it comes to human mental health, for sure. And then we have fitness. People spend about 2 hours a week for fitness, and that is every kind of fitness, like riding a bike or jogging or going to the gym. And if you spend 2 hours a week, that is 1.2% of your time in a week. If you do 3 hours a week of training, that's 1.8% of your time in the week. We also have about 30 hours that are goes anywhere during the week. So there's a lot of that's kind of the statistics there. The things that again stood out for me the most was that when I looked into the numbers, and I'm also going to pick some other numbers that I've found, but was that the ratio between screen time and training is about 9. So we spend 9 times more time on screens than we do for physical activity. We are socializing less. Like I said, 40% drop in 1 decade. I hope this doesn't go even lower in the future. And then we have also maybe one thing that has also increased over time is like subscriptions. So we spend much more in subscriptions than we estimate. So 2.5 more than we actually do. So people estimate that they pay about 80 to 89 euros a month for subscriptions, when it's actually about 213. So it's a way more than they actually are spending. And 67% of all gym memberships worldwide are unused. So they're not using their memberships. So those are a bit of like the statistics for time, mental health, I would say, so like social health, subscription spend, and also how we use the gym memberships. So I have a couple of exercises for you that I do every week with entrepreneurs. So usually when I sit down with, if it's somebody who's overwhelmed, or if it's just somebody who is getting started with coaching or mentorship or so, is I just ask them to show me their calendar. And the calendar shows me everything about where the focus is going for someone's life. And it might not be a super big shocker, but for many people, they don't really have a good calendar going. And this is not shaming anyone. It absolutely has been true for me too in the past, that I didn't really like to work with a calendar. And I know some people are more into that, and it maybe is also a bit of a personality trait that some people that tend to be a lot for calendar, they are maybe a bit more anxious, so they have to have control of what happens in the future. But that is not like the thing that we're trying to get by doing this exercise. But what the calendar tells us is that if it's not in the calendar, it's actually not a priority, it's just a wish. And then it's also not a big surprise that these things don't happen. And when we start to put things into calendar, we have to start to say no to stuff. And something that really annoys me today is the level of uncommitment people have to actually commit to something. And you probably know this too. You invite somebody to, hey, we can have a coffee, we can have dinner, you want to come to my party, whatever. And people are like, oh, that sounds great. I have to check, I'll let you know. And then, you don't get any notification, because they're looking for, like, basically what they're saying is like, I'm looking for maybe something better coming up. And I think, like, yeah, great, but usually they don't even know what that is. So commitment seems to be a huge problem for people. But let's do this. We're going to do 2 audits together. So I want you to open your calendar from last week, and I want you to look into the reality. What is actually in there? What happened between those like blank spaces where you didn't have anything scheduled? Maybe you don't know, maybe you know, but I want you to just write down what you actually did. Where did the time go? Number two, I want you to go into your phone, check your screen time report. You're going to see how many hours you've done, on what you spent it, and this is going to be also a bit of a reality check to see like if it's really the number that you estimated at the beginning. So we want to see, obviously, do you allocate time on the things that you want to happen in life? And you ask yourself, like Franklin did, like, what good have I done this week? And what good do I intend to do? I think a lot of us might think that, hey, I'm doing the things I just want to have this kind of life where I don't have these commitments. I actually enjoy that, and I don't like to have anything in my calendar because I want to be spontaneous and so on, and that is fine. But when I ask people, most people, and I ask them, tell me something good that happened this week. Tell me a highlight from this week. They go blank. They have nothing to say. And that tells me you haven't actually planned anything that you wanted to happen for you. And it can be work, but it's also like your private, your personal stuff. Did you plan something great with a friend or with your partner, with your kids, with some intention? Because you can actually mold the future by envisioning what you want to do. Another objection I usually get is that I don't really have money to do the things I can do, so I just don't want to do them. And fair enough, like it's hard. Like if you don't have cash, then you don't have cash. That has been the situation for me many years, where I don't have the money, so why should I even care of like planning anything? But here is the truth: is like if you really know what you want to do, now it becomes easier to start actually allocating your resources into the right place. And I think there is a story about this guy who worked at a parking lot, and he was like almost retiring, and he was a multimillionaire because he every day he saved a couple of his pennies, and invested them in the market, and so he became a millionaire. And he didn't have a lot of income at all, but over time that component. What we can do, however, is to look into the reality. And the number one step that we want to do is just write down what we think we are spending on streaming services, apps, memberships, software, everything, maybe home delivery, and so on. Just write an estimate. What do you think? Is it like 100 euros, 500 euros, whatever? Funny story to that is like a lot of people that are multimillionaires, they actually are broke because they're overspending what they actually are having in coming in the money. So this is like the classical thing with guys like Boris Becker or whoever you can think of out there that was on the top and then got bankrupt. Number two we're going to do is obviously open our bank statements, and we're going to take our last 3 to 6 months, download them, and then what you can do is small little hack, put them into an AI tool, and let them sort it out, how much you put in the subscriptions and everything. And now you're going to see which ones have you been maybe not using the last 30 days. And now you can take and cancel those subscriptions and allocate that money to something else. And that could be, again, wrote them into savings, wrote them into saving for a trip, for whatever experience you want to do, or the things that you maybe dream of doing this sometime in the future, or buying a house or so, then you want to start there. It might just be 15 euros today, and that's fine. The lesson here is the practice of doing it, because the older you get, the higher that expense goes, and this is also true for any business, that you start to get these kind of just costs appearing, and it just goes on for months and years. And Benjamin Franklin did this also every day for decades, maybe not with the bank accounts, but he did this with his moral accounting. And he had a very simple ledger for that. He just looked into that every day, and most people are just not scared of looking. And this is what is called like ostrich accounting, where you stick your head into the sand and you don't want to see the reality. Sure, I think everyone has been there, and I'm just saying this is your permission to take you out your head and do these small steps, and feel free to just share that also if you want to. One thing that I've done like over the years is like I just try to optimize. I try to optimize my schedule to my life that I have right now, and the lifestyle I want to have, and that I can get my non-negotiables into my schedule. And one thing that is very important for me is like my kids and family, which I've talked about. So my mornings are protected for that. But after that, it's also protected for when kids are out and so on. It's protected for writing and thinking. And this is where like the podcasts come out. This is where my ideas, my strategies and everything grow. And if I would put meetings here, then I would use that and never get that time back. And I would be in this kind of loop. So I would not make any forward decisions and strategy thinking for myself and my future, for business or so on. My training is always in the calendar. It's there, so it's not a coincidence that it happens. And like I'm not disciplined, but I try to set up things that keep me accountable. I have coaches, I have obviously family, I have people that I know that I've told things that I want to do. And when I look at entrepreneurs also like being in chaos, it's not about laziness or so. It's usually that the calendar is full with other people's priorities, and there's no time left for the life that you actually want to have and happen. And I think you want to have those pieces in there. You want to have time for your health, for your deep work, for your real relationships. We heard 40% less, so maybe we should work on having more social, deep social connections with people. And if you don't take care of that, nobody's going to do it for you. So this is where we have the agency. And also one thing I do with many people that have very full schedules is that we look like 6 or 8 weeks out in the future and start to map things or block things there, because it's impossible to do it next week because they're already like it's already too late. And I also would encourage you to ask yourself, what good would you like to happen this week? And then at the end of the week, ask yourself that closing question of like, what good did happen this week? I promise you, when you start with those two questions or have with those two questions, you'll start to move towards things that you want to happen. And it is possible. Again, if it's not this week or next week, it might be 6 weeks out, 10 weeks out. So take out your calendar and do this right now. You can stop this video, put in your training, put in when you're gonna go grocery shopping, put in your social connections, and again, you can do that 6 weeks from now. Just put it in there. Move stuff that you see are not productive and moving you in the direction that you want to go. Do the put a appointment into a calendar, also for the bank account audit. So you put that in there. It might take you an hour, maybe take 1.5, and then you've done it, and you've saved maybe a lot of time and money for the future. I hope that helps you to bring you forward. And now to my closing remarks is that if you like this episode, if you like to listen to these on Mondays, let me know. Subscribe to these podcasts, but also feel free to share it to someone who you think should maybe want to listen to these things on a Monday to get them on the right type of mindset. It is the start of the week, so we can always set the tone for the week from today. And if you want to start to work with, fitness and health, and you live in Berlin, again, I have a really great, talented team at Escapist that can help you, and I have a link below for that. If you are a fitness professional who's looking into getting better in coaching and develop that into a professional career, we have something called the Escapist Academy. That is where you get to know and become a better coach for the future and create a career. And if you are, just like what we do here and what I do, and you're not local, then you can always join our free community, and we'll set that up too. So that link should also appear somewhere below. So let's go out, have a fun week together, and make something good happen. I know something really good happening for me this week, and I'm going to tell you what good that is next episode for sure. All right. Thank you for listening, and have a jolly dolly week, and happy Monday. Bye.